And now let's bring a divorce attorney into the show. Lené, DeRudder. Lené, welcome into the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm apparently not doing so well. Me and this one over here are having a spat. What can you do?
I could help you get divorced. You can have work divorces, you know.
Really? Is that seriously a thing?
No.
Oh, okay.
We're starting a new trend.
We're starting a new trend. Lené, DeRudder hanging out with us on the show, a high-profile divorce attorney. And Lené, is this something, and I don't know, is it just me, or we had Ilhan Omar. She is accused of cheating, and it seems like usually it's male politicians, or usually men, it seems like they get busted cheating. Is that a misperception on my point?
Not necessarily. I think you're seeing a trend. I was looking at a study from the Institute for Family Studies that was done in an article was written in 2018, and they were talking about this trend where you've got the younger generation, your 18 to 29-year-olds, where the women are actually more likely than the men to cheat. And then as you progress into the older ages, that's where the gap starts happening, and where you find the biggest gap between men and women, and the men are more likely to cheat as they get older. So when you get into about 50, up to 60s, 70s, 80s, the men are much more likely to cheat. But the gap gets wider and wider between men and women. But ironically, it's the younger one, the 18 to 29, where the women are more likely. So I think that's kind of what you're seeing is this odd, this odd transition of who's cheating, what gender is cheating more than the other.
Yeah, and so, by the way, Lené DeRudder, divorce attorney, joining us on Hot Talk 93.9 The Eagle. So any thoughts as to why we're seeing younger women cheat?
I think it's a good question. I think that a lot of it has to do what we've seen socially shifting over the last couple of years between the Me Too movement and women being more outspoken and more hey, men do it, why can't we kind of thing, more independent. I mean, it's just our society is shifting in so many different ways. And I think one of the things that they talk about, the Institute for Family Studies talks about that is a contributing factor to whether men or women will cheat is their party identification, their race, their family background, and their religious activity.
Their party, like political party identification?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That has a factor.
Yeah, which is interesting because it seems to affect women more than it does men. So, whereas race seems to be more of a factor among men, whether or not they will cheat, party identification is not as much of a factor versus with women it is. But the one constant between the study talks about is between the two is religious activity, and so I think you're just seeing all of that kind of manifest now. It's very interesting. It's an evolution of so many things, so many moving parts in our society, and our, like you said, even our political system with politicians, things that were, if you think back to even my parents' generation, and actually that's interesting. My parents' generation of the baby boomers, they have a high rate of one of the highest rates of infidelities in those generations. But, it could be because they were sort of the first to come of age as to the, sexual revolution. So that kind of makes sense. But if you go to the generations before them, regardless of what your husband did, it was sort of this moral value that you had to just stick it out. Like, people didn't get divorced. It wasn't really an option, right? So you turn a blind eye to it. And I think now it's, a lot more is acceptable. And I don't know if religion plays as much of a factor anymore. And as a family law practitioner, what I see, I don't see religion playing a factor as much as it maybe it used to.
Hot Talk 93.9 The Eagle, Lené DeRudder, divorce attorney, joining us on the show. Some why people are unfaithful. So you said race can be a determining factor according to this one study you're looking at, and political party. So, of course, I've got to ask, which political party?
Well, it's Democrats, and then the study was talking about how Black men are more likely to cheat.
Really?
And then it's I believe Hispanic, and then white men. It's an article that was done by Wendy Wang, January 10th, 2018. You can look it up. Institute for Family Studies has a lot of research in there that's very interesting, because if you kind of look out there, there's not a lot of studies done on the statistics around who's cheating and why they're cheating. As a family law practitioner, I can tell you what I see is when people walk in and are cheating. And I was thinking about this the other day, actually, is, are there more men or women in my practice have I seen? And I think it's kind of equal.
Okay.
But when they walk in, it's because they're completely disconnected. They've grown in entirely opposite directions, and they're just coexisting. And, people want to be loved and noticed, and they want affection. And they don't have that in a relationship, and they've had enough, but they don't want to break up a family, because a lot of them have children, whether they're younger or older.
So they've been together a long time. They're just it's not that they hate each other. They're just not in love anymore.
Right. Well, marriage is hard. I mean, I got to tell you, I think it's the hardest job in the world. And I'm a mom of 3 kids, and I still think marriage is much harder, even as and I'm married, and it's my second marriage, but as a divorce attorney, I really do. I think marriage is the hardest job, and it is a job. You have to work at it. And if you don't work at it, it's a natural progression that people are going to grow and change in their relationships. And if you don't grow together, you're living with a roommate. So
marriage is the toughest job. I've done it a couple of times too. It's all right. But the only job I think harder than being a spouse is being married to a divorce attorney, Lené. Your husband, man.
That's not fun.
God. What is that like?
Arguments go differently, that's for sure.
What is that like for your husband, knowing, and I know you wouldn't do that, but knowing that he's married to one of the top divorce attorneys in the nation? What is that? That's got to be frightening, poor dude.
Well, he's a very patient man, very, very patient man, because I am not a very easy person, for sure. He's a very patient man, but yes, it's not a good thing that when you're upset and not in the right mind that you can draft your own divorce petition. That's never good.
You ever tease him? Look what I got here, honey, paper.
Yeah. So I'm part Italian too. So that whole combination is just not
goodness. Good. It's Lené DeRudder, divorce attorney. And then what about people in power, high-profile people, politicians? Is it we just hear about them more often than not? Because if the janitor at Hickman High School cheats, we're not going to hear about it.
Right.
But if we have a state representative who ends it, we're probably going to hear about that. But why is it people in positions of power and politics, why do we just hear about it more often, or do they cheat more often, do we think?
I think we hear about it more often. I also think that when you start getting to positions of your life where you have more, you've accumulated more wealth or power or those type of things, you sometimes lose focus in your relationship. You lose gratitude in what you have, because it's always bigger, better, greener on the other side. And I see it in my practice. Our law firm that I'm at, Calabrese Budner in Dallas, we do more sort of the high net worth divorces, and a lot of times you just see where someone's been so focused on the next thing and bigger and better and more and more and more that they kind of forgot about their spouse, and they're not really making the best decisions, and they're not being grateful for how they got there and who got there with them. And it's a human nature thing. I don't fault people at all or blame people. I mean, it's just natural for all of us to get kind of sucked into our own worlds and what we're doing, right? And how well we're doing.
And I think there should be a law, like minimum age for marriage should be like 25 or 30. You should wait, because maybe not a law, but it's a good idea, because you grow and you change, and sometimes spouses grow. By the way, I've been married twice, 2 very short marriages. If you're taking relationship advice from me right now, you're off to a bad start here at 8:21 on a Tuesday morning. But people, they change. Man, I can sit and hang out with you all day. Let me ask you this: do you So my divorce attorney, I had the same one for both of my divorces. So like he charged me every 6 minutes was billable. Is that standard in the divorce and the family law practice?
It is standard, and you do see, you see some firms that are transitioning to the quarter hour, so it's every 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But the 6 minutes is a pretty standard just in the legal world. Just make sure when you have one, it sounds like you had a good attorney or you wouldn't have gone back. But, it's the truth, right? But interview your attorney and make sure they're going to give you value for every minute of those 6 minutes.
The second time when I went to him, my biggest concern was, now when this shows up in the newspaper, my name's going to be first, right? So everybody knows I'm filing, not her. That was my big concern. The second time. How much do you charge an hour?
I charge $3.75.
You charge what?
$3.75 an hour.
$3.75.
Yes.
Man, I was paying, so 20 years ago, I paid $140 an hour. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
That was, yeah. I got him. It's funny, when I went to his office the next year, I had a whole new wing to the divorce attorney's office. And I said, did I pay for that? And he said, yeah, partly. Lené DeRudder, thanks for hanging out with us, man. You should come back on sometime.
Thanks for having me on. I'd love to. I love talking divorce.
I bet you do, man. We'll have to find a reason to have you on again, Lené DeRudder.